today we are tackling a hot topic, die-off during H. pylori treatment. And so if you've ever wondered whether your symptoms are normal or if something's off during your treatment protocol, this episode is for you. I'm going to break down what die-off is, what symptoms to expect, how to manage them effectively, and how to know it's time to adjust your approach and take a step back. Plus, I'll share strategies to minimize or even avoid die-off altogether so that you can confidently navigate your H. pylori healing journey. So, let's dive in. Hey there, I'm Jessica Washington, a former gut health patient turned functional nutrition practitioner, and I am on a mission to help you finally say goodbye to stubborn stomach symptoms and reclaim your life with confidence. On the Getting Well Again podcast, we dive deep into the root causes of gut issues, sharing real strategies that actually work to help you feel like yourself again. Healing your stomach is about so much more than just protocols. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's dive into this journey to lasting gut health together. And as a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a replacement for medical advice or treatment. Well, hello, and welcome back to the Getting Well Again podcast. I'm so pumped about today. We are going to be talking about die-off during H. pylori treatment, and this is always a hot topic with my clients and on Instagram because people just want to know how they should expect to feel during treatment and if what they are feeling is normal or if it indicates that something is wrong and they need to adjust something. So today we are going to unravel what exactly is die-off, what you can expect during the course of your herbal H. pylori treatment, ways to manage any die-off symptoms, and probably, most importantly, how to know when your symptoms are more than die-off and that you might need to switch gears and adjust things during treatment. And before we jump in, I do want to preface this whole podcast with the fact that not everyone will experience die-off symptoms during H. pylori treatment. In fact, as a practitioner, I very rarely have clients experience die-off, and I attribute this mostly to how I instruct them to start taking their treatment protocol supplements. We do it in a very systematic way, and I also include a lot of whole body support in their treatment protocols, and so we put all of those things into place prior to starting a protocol, and I think that really helps them avoid any severe die-off or have die-off at all. So it's not a guarantee that you're going to experience die-off, but it is possible. And so if you have experienced it in the past and that's making you nervous or hesitant to do more gut treatment, please know that die-off is not inevitable, and there's so many things that you can do to minimize it or prevent it from happening entirely. And I would rather have you be well informed and armed with all of the information on how to handle die-off rather than just not talking about it because not everyone will experience it. So, just setting the stage to start off on this whole conversation, when you begin a treatment protocol for H. pylori or any other gut infection, there is always a chance that your symptoms will get worse before they start to get better. And while this can be discouraging and confusing, this is actually a completely normal part of any treatment protocol. And so this is a phenomenon known as die-off or a Jarisch-Herxheimer reaction, named after the two doctors who discovered this phenomenon, and they were actually dermatologists, and so they discovered it on the skin when people were treating big infections like Lyme, things like that. And so the symptoms that you can experience during a die-off reaction are typically caused by the mass release of endotoxins from the H. pylori bacteria as they are destroyed or as they die off, hence the name. And this die-off phenomenon is really your body's natural response to the release of these endotoxins into your bloodstream, and it likely occurs to some degree every time you take antibiotics or herbal supplements. And it's only when the bacteria or other pathogens you are working to destroy, that when they're present in such large quantities or are more pathogenic in nature, does this die-off reaction become just too much for your body to handle, and then symptoms can appear. So when your body is flooded with these endotoxins, they travel through the bloodstream and elicit an acute immune response, and then the subsequent inflammation and burden on your liver are what are directly causing the worsening of symptoms you may be experiencing. The severity and duration of your symptoms during this die-off reaction depends on a few factors. So first, it depends on the number of endotoxins present in your system, which is likely directly related to the number of bacteria you are killing off. So in theory, a larger H. pylori infection will elicit a larger endotoxin release, which may result in more severe die-off symptoms. Second, the severity and duration of your symptoms will depend on the level of inflammation triggered by this acute immune response in your body. And so if you have things like an autoimmune disease or another condition that tends to upregulate your immune system, or if your body is already in kind of a susceptible, inflamed state, your die-off reaction may also be more severe. And then third, the severity of this reaction depends on the presence of other infections. So whether you have additional gut infections going on, like other bacterial imbalances or candida or parasites on top of the H. pylori, or other co-infections like Lyme, can all impact the severity and duration of your die-off symptoms. And again, this reaction is a completely normal response by your body to the killing off of these pathogens. It is, however, important for us to know how to identify a die-off reaction, what to expect during it, and how to best manage the symptoms. So, when you are going through H. pylori treatment, it can be difficult to sometimes distinguish die-off symptoms from a flare-up of your normal gut symptoms. And this is where a lot of my clients get tripped up because they're so used to feeling awful that then they start this treatment protocol and they start to feel more awful and they're like, oh, what's going on here? Is this die-off? Is this related to my treatment? Or is this just my symptoms flaring up for some random reason? And so it can be a little bit difficult to tell the difference between the two. But some common gut-related die-off symptoms that you can be looking out for are things like an increase in bloating, gas, nausea, decreased appetite, slowed digestion is a big one. So if you just feel like you're not digesting your food very well, it's just sitting in your stomach, that can be a result of starting the treatment protocol, or constipation or diarrhea. And this is common. Again, oftentimes die-off symptoms will closely mimic the symptoms of the bacteria you are working so hard to kill off, but other times die-off symptoms can be more flu-like. So common flu-like or non-digestive die-off symptoms can be things like fatigue, body aches, chills, brain fog, and then skin changes like hives or itching, which seem odd. But a lot of times when your liver is bogged down, it will kind of push those toxins and things out and they come out in your skin. So it can be difficult to tell exactly what symptoms are related to what when you started your treatment protocol, which is where the timeline of when you experience these new or worsening symptoms becomes important. And so die-off symptoms usually begin anywhere from the day that you start your herbal supplements to around 2 to 3 days after. And the time frame within which you'll start to notice die-off symptoms depends, again, on the severity of your gut infection, how healthy your gut is, and honestly, just you as an individual. Everyone is different and everyone responds to treatment protocols differently. So once you do start noticing die-off symptoms, if you do at all, you can expect to experience a mild to moderate increase in discomfort and symptoms and just feeling lousy for a few days to about a week or two. And so die-off symptoms should not last longer than 1 to 2 weeks, and any symptoms lasting longer than that should be attributed to other factors like not tolerating a certain supplement well, or just poor baseline gut health and needing to step back a little bit and build up that gut strength before you begin a treatment protocol. So to kind of break this down for you, I'm going to list out what's normal to experience in a die-off reaction and then what is not considered a normal die-off reaction. So first, here are some signs that you are experiencing a typical die-off reaction at the beginning of H. pylori treatment. So if you experience an increase in symptom severity and or frequency for a few days at the start of your treatment protocol, to be expected. Second, if you are noticing only a mild to moderate increase in symptoms, not a severe increase, that would be considered abnormal, too much. We don't want you suffering. And third, you are noticing that you need to take things like digestive enzymes or bitters to help improve your digestion for a few days after starting treatment. That's normal. And finally, if you're noticing mild to moderate skin reactions like hives or bumps or sensitivity, that can also be normal. And so those are all considered typical die-off reactions and are really nothing to take action on unless they are lasting longer than a few days at the beginning of your treatment protocol. And then things that are not considered typical die-off reactions that you would want to notify your practitioner of and make some tweaks or changes to your game plan are, so first, if you're experiencing an increase in symptom severity and or frequency for a few weeks, not just a few days, like your symptoms have gotten worse since starting treatment and they just aren't getting better or subsiding. That would be abnormal, and that would be something you would want to let your practitioner know. And then second, if you're noticing a severe increase in symptoms, so like your symptoms are disrupting your life, making it hard to function normally, if you just feel worn down and exhausted and like you can't get through the day, that's not normal. We don't want that either. Third, if you're having disrupted sleep, and so this can be a really big thing at the start of treatment protocols, if you're maybe no longer sleeping through the night or if you're having a hard time falling asleep, things like that, that would be something that would be considered more severe than normal and that we don't want you to just quote unquote deal with as you go through a treatment protocol. Fourth, you notice an increase in digestive symptoms that last for weeks at a time, or digestive symptoms that occur beyond the first few days of starting treatment. So if you've been on your protocol for a while and then you start to notice flares that just aren't letting up, that can be considered abnormal. And then finally, the last thing that's not necessarily normal or that we want you just suffering through is just if you're experiencing really low energy during a treatment protocol. Die-off reactions are typically not going to wipe you out and make you stay on the couch all day. And so if that or any of these other things are happening to you at the start of treatment or anytime during treatment, they're likely beyond the typical die-off reaction, and you should work with your practitioner to figure out how to get you feeling better again. And so essentially, die-off symptoms shouldn't be so severe that you have to suffer through them. And if they are, what you're experiencing is likely more than die-off or likely more than a typical die-off reaction, and you'll want to tweak things. All right, so now that we know why die-off occurs and what is and isn't normal, let's talk about some simple ways to manage die-off at the start of your treatment protocol. Because typically, once you can get over that initial die-off hump during your treatment, the rest of your protocol is often smooth sailing and you should be well on your way to being H. pylori free. So there are 3 big categories of support that you can use to help manage your die-off symptoms. And so they are using supplements, by adjusting your diet, and by tweaking some critical lifestyle factors. So first up, let's talk a little bit about some supplements that can be helpful. And I know that adding a few more supplements to your already probably daunting H. pylori eradication protocol may be the last thing that you want to do, but strategically using a few additional supplements can make a huge difference in your die-off symptoms those first few days on your protocol. So it can totally be worth it. These supplements aren't necessarily a part of an H. pylori protocol, but they can make getting through any increase in symptoms a little bit more bearable. So the first supplement to consider adding to your treatment protocol is a binder. So as we already learned, die-off symptoms are a result of the H. pylori bacteria releasing toxic byproducts when they are killed off. And this flood of toxins into our gut and bloodstream is a lot for our bodies to handle. And one way to help reduce that burden and therefore reduce our symptoms is to take a binder. So binders help to bind up whatever they come in contact with in the GI tract. And this means that binders can help to gobble up some of those endotoxins and shuttle them out of the body via stool. And so with a binder, you'll often notice a reduction in symptoms during this usually symptomatic die-off period, and that's what we're aiming for. So if that sounds like something that could be helpful in your protocol, definitely worth talking to your practitioner and adding it in. And the next supplement to consider adding to your treatment protocol is a spore-forming probiotic. And so these types of probiotics specifically have been shown to reduce gut inflammation, which is a common result of the surge of endotoxins that we can experience when we first start a treatment protocol. Another study done with these soil-based spore-forming probiotics show that they were able to reduce the number of LPS endotoxins in the gut by 42%. And so this is significant because the presence of those endotoxins, as we see with die-off, can actually damage the intestinal lining and cause what is known as leaky gut, which could be contributing to some of your symptoms. But with the use of the spore-forming probiotics, that damage can be reversed, lessening the impact of this die-off period on your overall health. And then finally, the last supplement recommendation I have is adding in some magnesium. Can be super helpful to keep just your elimination and detox pathways open during treatment, which again can help to reduce die-off symptoms. So bowel movements are one of the primary ways that your body removes toxins, so making sure that you're having at least one bowel movement a day during your treatment protocol is a really great way to keep those pathways open and help remove toxins that otherwise would build up in your guts and could exacerbate symptoms. So magnesium citrate specifically is great at helping to relax smooth muscles in your gut and help increase bowel transit time. So if you're noticing, especially if you're not having consistent bowel movements during your treatment protocol, adding in some magnesium citrate could be really great. All right, and next up are some dietary strategies to help manage die-off symptoms. So first, we already know that your liver and how well it's functioning plays the biggest role in your die-off symptoms. So it's in our best interest to support our liver the best that we can while we're working on treating our H. pylori infection. And one way to do that is to increase your intake of bitter foods. So bitter foods help to stimulate digestive enzymes, liver enzymes, and bile production, which all make the process of breaking down food and toxins much more efficient. So some examples of bitter liver-supportive foods that you could include in your diet are things like Jerusalem artichokes, dandelion greens, beet greens, kale, nettles, and grapefruit. And it's a good goal if you're looking to support your liver during your treatment protocol to add in maybe one bitter food to your meals per day, just to help give your liver some extra love during this whole process. And then next, increasing your water intake will do so many beneficial things for your die-off symptoms, and it's free, so why not? Drinking enough water is essential for so many things, but for what we're talking about, getting enough water is essential for having consistent bowel movements, which we already know is really important for helping get all of those toxins out of your gut. And so it's generally recommended that you aim to get half of your body weight in ounces of water per day. But if you are experiencing die-off symptoms, it would not hurt to increase that amount even more. Water is your friend when your body is under stress, when it's working really hard, and so drink it as much as you need to during this treatment protocol, during this die-off period. Just drink the water. And then finally, you probably already know this, but alcohol is a stressor for your liver. And so if you are experiencing die-off symptoms, you want to be giving your liver all of the love and support that you can and not increasing its load and its burden during this time. And that can mean taking a step back from alcohol for a few weeks is probably a good idea. And this doesn't need to be a permanent change, but I'd recommend that you remove alcohol from your life, at least for as long as you're experiencing die-off symptoms. Studies also show that alcohol is a gut irritant and a driver of gut inflammation. So removing alcohol for the entirety of your gut healing protocol also might be something worth considering. And then last, but definitely not least, let's look at a few impactful lifestyle changes that you can make to help reduce die-off symptoms. And I know lifestyle changes aren't as simple or as exciting as adding a new supplement to your routine, but they can be some of the most impactful changes you can make when it comes to maintaining a healthy, thriving gut for the long term. So here are two really simple lifestyle changes you can make to help support your body while you're dealing with die-off. So first up is to make sure that you are sweating regularly. So sweating is another way that our bodies rid themselves of toxins along with bowel movements. We also get toxins out through our sweat. And so when your body is potentially flooded with toxins during the start of an H. pylori treatment protocol, opening up this detox pathway is always a good idea. And so any way that you can get your body active and moving can help increase circulation and induce sweating. But this activity and movement doesn't have to be strenuous if you don't want it to be. Things like walking or yoga or bike riding can work up just enough of a sweat to be effective, and really 20 to 30 minutes of light sweating a few times a week is all you need to help open this detox pathway. Or if you have one, you can use an infrared sauna. That can be extremely helpful with the detox process, but it's not necessary. And then finally, our last lifestyle change to help with die-off is lymphatic drainage. And this helps to move any stagnant lymph that may be just hanging around, move it through your body to help flush out toxins and other waste that it's carrying. And so to do this, it's really just like a gentle form of massage. You can do it at home on yourself, and it's just really helpful to stimulate the movement of lymph and the transportation of toxins out of your body. And so if you're watching this in video form, I can kind of demo it for you, but basically a lymphatic opening technique starts by gently tapping the area under and around your collarbone. You just do this with your fingertips, just super lightly. So just tap there for a little bit, and then you can start to move to your face, like around your cheekbones, around your eyebrows. You can go up around your forehead, around your ears. You can even look up online and find like a map of lymph nodes and see where they're hanging out. And you can just tap gently on all of those places, and you'll probably start to notice, like I'm having right now, some like drainage down your throat, and that's just fluid movement. It doesn't take a lot of pressure or a lot of time, but it can be really helpful to just get fluid moving, get things moving throughout your body, and help your body just stimulate some fluid movement. So highly recommend trying that out. It's fun and free and can be really relaxing. Another easy way to get your lymph moving is by jumping on a trampoline. So if like you have kids and they have one of those little trampolines with the handles, jump on that for a little bit. They also make things called rebounders, but those tend to be just overly priced trampolines. So anything where you can jump, you can do jump rope, jumping jacks. Jumping is helpful for moving lymph as well. All right, so now I just want to wrap things up today by quickly just giving you some advice on how to know when it is time to maybe take a break from your treatment protocol. And of course, you and your practitioner have to work together to make that call officially, but other practitioners out there might not be of the same opinion about die-off reactions as I am, so just here are my 2 cents if it's helpful. And so, as we talked about earlier, die-off symptoms are going to be just a minimal to moderate increase over the course of no more than 1 to 2 weeks. And any symptoms that are more severe in nature or that last longer than 2 weeks are likely not able to be contributed to die-off. Symptoms that make it difficult to function normally during the day or that are causing you to not be able to eat, sleep, or exercise as usual are ones that shouldn't be considered normal. Starting a treatment protocol, in my opinion, should not knock you off your entire routine and completely wreck your health. And if so, there's likely something else going on. Other factors that might be contributing to more severe symptoms at the start of a treatment protocol are things like starting a supplement too fast, like maybe you just jumped right into taking the whole supplement or the whole protocol. That can be a big contributor to severe symptoms. Or maybe you are reacting poorly to a certain ingredient in a supplement. Not everyone is going to tolerate all treatment supplements equally, and so that could also be at play for you. Or you might just need to take a step back and improve your baseline gut health and function first before being able to be successful in a treatment protocol. So if you are really struggling and it's been a while since you've felt good on your protocol, you don't have to keep going. There is no need to stick it out, and no one gets a prize for feeling the worst during their treatment protocol. If you have a practitioner, let them know how you're feeling and ask what can be done to lessen your symptoms and just troubleshoot what's going on. You don't need to suffer in order to be successful on a treatment protocol. And if you don't have a practitioner, it's probably time to find someone who has experience working with people like you and successfully eradicating H. pylori, because there are nuances and things that go on specifically in treating H. pylori that it can be helpful to have someone who knows what they're doing. And of course, I'd love to be that person for you. I'm opening up the doors to my signature stomach healing and H. pylori treatment program, Goodbye Stomach Symptoms, very soon, so they will be open shortly. And so, if you want to be the first to learn more about this program, how it can help you, and get a chance to reserve your seat, you can jump on the waitlist by going to theguthealingninja.com/waitlist. I will also put that link in the show notes so you can have access to it that way too. But that's it. That's all I got on die-off and symptom increases and all the things to troubleshoot during your treatment protocol. So I hope it was helpful. And again, die-off is normal to some extent. Not everyone will experience it, especially if you work with a practitioner who has experience in treating H. pylori and who can help you prep and start your treatment protocol well so that your body is just better able and more ready to handle your treatment. And that can make a world of difference. So that's all I got for you today. Thanks for hanging out with me and nerding out to all things die-off. This just makes my little heart happy, and I hope it does for you too. And I will see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Getting Well Again podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback really helps others who need this information find the show and start their own healing journey. And if you know someone who'd benefit, please feel free to share this episode with them too. See you next time.